Alright, welcome back. So this time we're going to be making a bubble trail for our player using the particle system. We're also going to be experimenting with buoyancy effectors. So we're just going to make a basic trail that will be behind the player. It's just a small bubble trail. It'll be very simple and straightforward. I'm also going to be showing what I did while I was experimenting with buoyancy effectors to try and create a current or a flow to try and match the ocean. Let's get started. To start, we need our particle system. I name it as Bubble Trail and change the simulation. I play around with the amount of particles that spawn and how long the particle system should emit. I change the shape of the particle emission from cone to sphere, and change the radius of the shape and set the gravity to 0. Already starting to look closer to a bubble trail effect. I enable colour over time and add blue to transparent to make it seem like the particles are fading over time. I changed the max particles to a much lower number since the particle effect was not meant to be crazy. I made a bubble particle sprite sheet and imported it into our project. Then the sprite sheet was set up ready for the particle sprites to be added to the effect. I set the mode in the renderer to sprites and select all the sprites for Bubble Trail. Then move the selected sprites into the slots that we added for sprites. Then make sure that the material is set for the sprite default material. Our bubbles are now set up. I have a quick play around with the speed to see what effects I can get and change it back to lifetime. I attach the bubble trail object to the player and move the trail away from the player location so that when in play the trail will be more visible and will rotate with the player. I like how the trail emits and move the trail to a more appropriate location just below the player. This effect is minor but will add to the idea of swimming in the ocean, kicking up bubbles. In our prefab folder I created an effects folder and make our bubble trail a prefab. I move the trail into the effect folder and open our player controller script. I created a bool called noCallWithIsland and set the bool at start to true. Depending on whether the bool is true or false, will determine the trail is active or not. When the player enters the island, the bool will be set to false, but if the player exits the island, the bool is set to true. Based on the state of the bool, the bubble trail will enable or disable. I apply the effects to all animal prefabs, not just the player, to bring more life to the game. And a quick play to see if it is working on the wildlife. I experiment with water currents and create an ocean flow that affects the wildlife or just the seagrass. To do this I created a game object and added the 2D effector to it. Then I choose what I wanted to affect based on the layer. I went into the scene view to see what the effector was doing to the map. I spent a long time testing the 2D buoyancy effectors, angle and flow. I even matched the ocean waves and speed with the flow. I had very interesting results but felt that it didn't work for what I wanted it to do. But I may use 2D effectors later for something I have planned. Okay, and there we go. a nice little particle system behind our player and for all of our different fish and animals, as well as adding a little bit of extra to the wildlife. We also did a little bit of experimenting with buoyancy, and I kind of like the idea of the flow, so I may use that for something a little bit different I have planned in the future. So I'm probably going to add something, I'm probably going to do something with that later on. Next time what we're going to be looking at is finishing the skill tree, or specifically finishing the survival section of the skill tree. Once it's done, we can duplicate everything we've kind of done for the survival tree and just duplicate it over to the other sections. So it'll technically pretty much be finished, ready to be moving on to the abilities. I'll see you next time.